Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon or good almost evening, wherever you are. Really happy to have you all here. So this is our fourth week. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so today, June 23rd, almost July, crazy as that may sound. We're going to go through a number of things, but this is kind of where we're at, where we've come to, and where we're going. So the plan is that this will be kind of the last weekly meeting. And then from here, you'll have your groups to meet with your groups. And then we'll come back in 2 weeks and kind of do it in 2 weeks, get together as a group and kind of discuss where we're at, what challenges we're having, what opportunities we see, what new ideas, etc. And today, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to show about a 5-minute video of a really good overview of carbon taxation that was just on CNN. Good to see it getting out there in the mass media. Kind of have you all just give an update on where you're at, introduce those of us that are new here, quick introduction. Just want to kind of, I guess, go back to the beginning, if you will, just talk about what our goals are and what we're trying to do here. Talk about and have you share some of the emails that you've been working on. Talk about what we're actually asking for again, and then kind of delve into questions that you've had, questions that you think companies may have, in talking to them, how we deal with rejection, et cetera, what our process is going forward, and kind of what those steps are. So with that, I need to unshare. I realized I didn't click the right buttons when I shared. Just let me know you can hear this. Whoops. It doesn't look like a video, does it? Why is that? They just break it up in these little.
I think that's a video.
Welcome wagon has arrived.
With ads. Has everybody seen Ted Lasso?
This massive event,
Really good, really fun.
I'm not coming back.
I thought we were a team.
You're the girl with the deaf family, and you sing.
I think we've all had enough of this amuse-bouche. Time to move on to the main course.
And now for the last look. At the heart of the infrastructure fight in Washington is this question: should the U.S. hike taxes on corporations to raise money to fight climate change? Now, Republicans point out that whatever you tax, you get less of. And today's economy needs more corporate activity, not less. It's a fair point. So then the answer, to me at least, is obvious. Let's tax the thing we should all agree we want less of, which is carbon dioxide emissions. The fundamental reason why we are not making much headway with reducing carbon emissions is they're everywhere. We tend to focus on electricity and transportation, but those sectors account for only about half of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. When we make cement, that emits carbon. Even if you have solar panels and drive an electric car, the process of making the panels and the car generated carbon. Our food production creates huge amounts of greenhouse gases. We could try to reduce carbon sector by sector, issuing reams of regulations to mandate emission cuts and spending large amounts of money to prop up certain technologies. That is essentially the current approach: clunky, selective, and subject to political swings. The government is essentially adding red tape and picking winners and losers. What if instead we unleash the power of the market to solve the problem? That's what a carbon tax would do. Think of it as putting a price on carbon, making sure all products reflect their true cost to society by charging a fee for carbon pollution. Suddenly, every industry and business would have a powerful incentive to reduce emissions wherever they occurred. And rather than the government telling them how to do it, they'd be free to figure out the best, cheapest way. Maybe it's buying more efficient equipment, or maybe it's installing solar panels, maybe it's electric vehicles, maybe it's hydrogen vehicles. We will see 100 solutions bloom. Now, carbon taxes have often been politically toxic in the US and in other countries. In many cases, ordinary people feel they have to bear the brunt of higher prices. That's where the new concept of carbon dividends comes in. The idea is to take at least some of the revenues raised by the carbon tax and give it back to people, sending out checks every few months. Remember how popular the stimulus checks were? Polls indicate 2/3 of Americans support the basic idea behind carbon dividends. A growing number of conservatives are getting behind this idea. It's mostly former Republican officials, but some Republican lawmakers like Mitt Romney and Lindsey Graham have expressed interest. The US Chamber of Commerce and the American Petroleum Institute now support carbon pricing as well. But if we raise the cost of carbon here, won't that mean China benefits by exporting cheaper, dirtier goods to America? No, because those goods would simply be subjected to the same carbon fee at the border, a green tariff. This could actually help American producers compete with foreign imports because US products are often cleaner. A study commissioned by one advocacy group found that carbon tariffs would increase domestic sales of US steel by up to 9%. Ideally, these tariffs won't actually be necessary because other countries will adopt their own carbon taxes. After all, if the choice is for Chinese companies to pay the tax to the US or pay a domestic carbon tax into Chinese coffers, wouldn't Beijing prefer the latter? Virtually every economist agrees a carbon tax is the single best strategy to begin to solve the climate crisis. Instead, we are pursuing an inefficient, bureaucratic, piecemeal approach. Let's not settle for that. There is a better way.
Join us in helping to transform manufacturing to be.
And Randy, while you're going back to the slides, let me also mention that this past few days, a conservative caucus group started looking more seriously at some free market solutions to climate change. And I'll send around after this New York Times article about that. But I think if you're dealing with Congress people in a more conservative area or businesses in a more conservative area, I think we can be telling them now that their Congress people may be more amenable to hearing about some of our solutions than they were even just a few weeks ago. So I know we have a couple of new folks with us today who haven't been with us before. So Anna, maybe if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, hi, my name's Anna Clunan. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I'm going to be a junior this coming fall at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. And I think my interest in the climate comes from I live on the side of a mountain, and so everything around me is very nature-esque, obviously. And I think throughout the years, it's when you live in it, you can really see the changes that's happening. And so I think, especially with my city, it's one of the top cities to move to in the US right now. And so there's a lot of change. And I think it's very important to make it good change. And so that's kind of what inspires me.
Thanks, Anna.
Great. Thank you and welcome. And Matthew?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry I'm really late to the party here, but I'm originally from New Jersey and I'm now living in Arlington, Virginia. I'm a incoming second-year master's candidate at George Washington, studying global energy and environmental policy. I just finished up 6 years as an analyst in the Army, so it's moving on to the next phase of my career. I guess interest in the climate, for a number of reasons, but a couple of years ago, my grandma started to continuously quote some form of this quote: "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors; we borrow it from our children." And it's really stuck with me through the years, and wanting to make an impact for not just our generation, but for future generations, and hoping to make an impact in the communities that I grow up in and living in now, and just really for the world.
Very good. Thank you. And I know you weren't here for the last few weeks because you were finishing up your military training. So thank you for your service. Okay, very good. Next slide, Randy.
Oh, you want to have
Oh,
people?
I'm sorry.
Updates?
Did we have anybody else? I thought it was just the two.
I think so, and just
Yeah.
have everybody kind of do a quick update as to where they're at. And yeah, can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah. Mhm. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go around and just talk about?
Yeah, I thought we'd just have everybody kind of just give a quick blurb in terms of where they're at with this, whether they're looking at companies, or where they're at with their email, any challenges that they're having, or questions. Just a quick little update, if we could. I'll start with we just heard from Anna and Matt. How about Olivia? You kick it off.
Yeah, hi everybody. I guess my most recent update is that I sent my first email today to a bike shop in Chicago that's pretty close to where I live. But I got the kickback email that the address is not right. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board and find a better email and hopefully get it to Joanne, who I'm looking to get it to.
Super. Thanks, Olivia. Erica?
Hi. So I've been kind of just doing research on the companies that I picked out, and
Hold on a sec. Hey, Louise, can you mute yourself? I'll try and mute her. Thank you. Go ahead, Erica.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at, starting to work on my drafting my email and getting together with my group.
Super. Thanks, Erica. Just working my way here. Is Allison maybe next?
Hi. Yeah, I'm still working on putting together my emails, and now that I've identified the companies or organizations, I'm trying to find kind of what Olivia is doing, the right person to contact. So actually getting that contact information. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thanks. Allison, Isabella?
Hi. So yeah, I made a couple draft emails, and I made because I was thinking I felt like I wanted to really give them an overview of my understanding of the bill. So I made a PowerPoint presentation to include in the emails, and then ideally, if they're interested in meeting with me virtually or something, I could present them the PowerPoint myself and then get them to endorse. But I haven't sent any yet, but I'm planning to. So.
Fantastic. Will you why don't you send the presentation that you worked on to Mark, and I will take a peek at it and offer any thoughts, and then send it around to everybody. Thanks, Isabella. That's great. Delara?
Yeah, so I was able to find the sustainability contacts or just the general owners for smaller businesses. But for larger businesses, I tried to find the people who were in charge of sustainability. So I've got my kind of email template drafted. So now that I've kind of wrapped up the last contact information that I was looking for, I'm ready to start sending emails out.
Beautiful. Cooper?
Yeah, hello, I'm Cooper. I was working on finishing up an email for general coffee shops, things like that. So I just finished up my first draft email. Also, now I'm just looking to find people's email and find the right person to send those emails to for some of the shops that I found. I was having the most success using Prospect to find the people's emails, so I recommend you guys use that, as well as hunter.io, but that one will sometimes just give you a base thing. But yeah, that's all.
That's awesome. Is it prospect.com?
I think it's prospect.io.
.io, and the other one was
hunter.io.
Hunter.io.
I think you had Hunter listed. I'll send the links in the chat. That's all.
Great.
By the way, if you want another set of eyes to look over the emails, I'm always happy to do that. But if you just want to go on, you feel comfortable with what you got, fine.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Neha?
I have a couple of drafts, and I attended the June conference, and the group of mayors said that candidates are way more likely to kind of back policy because they really were looking for support at that point. And I found a local assembly special election that's happening on June 29th, and I reached out to one of the candidates, James Aguilar, and Elena and I have a meeting on Friday, so that's very exciting.
Yay, it's fantastic. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Let's see, Adriana.
Adriana might be frozen there.
We'll come back to Adriana. Amanda, any update on your end?
Yeah, I've been focusing on real estate as a sector to advocate for carbon fee and dividend support in. So I've just been compiling kind of a list of realty companies that I can reach out to in the area that I'll be residing in, which is in Carmel, California, so near Monterey. And I'm also from San Luis Obispo. So just to kind of expand my reach there, I'm also going to refer back to San Luis Obispo realty companies and also companies that I've, been a patron of during my time in college. Still working on drafting the emails for that just to make sure that my, description of what we're advocating for is correct, and also figuring out kind of the kind of narrative piece of like making sure that I'm appreciating them for something that kind of relates to carbon fee and dividend for environmental action, social action. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, good point. Good reminder that if you found something on their website that you could point to that brought you to them, that make note of that.
Elena?
Yeah, so Neha and I do have that meeting with James on Friday, which is very exciting. And I have reached out to two of my personal contacts. So one is like a local coffee shop in Berkeley, and I have an in with like the owner. So we're gonna talk sometime in the next week. And also one of my roommates, her mom works at Berks, which is a K-8 school in San Francisco. So I'm hoping to get a meeting with her or someone higher up in that school. And then also I've been working on this draft email for the director of sustainability at HBO because I have a contact for, I guess, Warner in general, and they're kind of a leader in sustainable entertainment business practices. So I'm gonna see where that goes.
Oh, interesting. Fantastic. Thank you. Griffin?
Yeah, so I'm focusing on, at least right now, finishing up my emails and then determining which companies that I want to send stuff to. Initially, I had done like mid-market concrete companies, but I think I'm going to shift it more towards small market concrete companies just to make it more likely that we get a response.
Interesting. Thank you. Nicholas?
Yeah. Right now, I fixed it. And now I just got 2 draft emails because I only have 2 industries. I have mostly small like vegan restaurants nearby me, and then I have like mid-sized solar companies. So is it okay if I send like 2 general draft emails to you to look over?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then but I also want to try and maybe like I don't know, maybe add a 3rd industry, like something bigger, in my area. I reached out to my chapter too, but they didn't respond yet.
Okay, that sounds good. Excellent. Adriana, are you there now?
Yes, I think I'm gonna have to keep my camera off just to save the connection. But yeah, sorry about that. So I'm just working on drafting my emails as well, and researching the companies to make sure I craft the emails specific to them, and then also planning a meeting with my group.
Perfect. Thanks, Adriana. Fatu, are you there? I don't know if you're you mentioned you're having some connectivity issues.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just having some issues right now, so I don't know if the audio will cut out. But
We can
I've
hear you.
been drafting some. Okay, I've been drafting some emails for some of the bourbon companies nearby. However, the issue that I've come across is that I have to be, 21 in order to meet with some of these business owners. So most of my work is solely going to be done through emails and stuff like that. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm sure Mark or I or somebody else might be happy to fly out to check out the Kentucky distilleries. So sounds very appealing. Excellent. Anybody I missed? All right.
Yeah, and I'll just offer again that, you're reaching out to people who are busy, of course, who have lots of things going on. So you want the email to be short and to the point and catchy, if you can. I think we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
Worth mentioning.
Great.
Sorry, I had one quick question about the
Yeah.
emails. As I'm writing mine, I'm kind of I was trying to make like one email that I could send out to my companies, but do you think it's better to kind of personalize it to each company I want to work with, or yeah, I don't know which one?
Yeah, I would think that mostly, once you get a good email, most of it should be the same. But
Okay.
if you do have something to personalize, like I said, if you have something that drew you to that company because they've got a sustainability message on their website or something like that, certainly start off with that. But I think once you got something good, go with it.
Yeah, that's typically how I do it. Like the first couple lines may be different. And maybe the last line might be a little different depending, but generally the base content is usually the same, in terms of, what I'm working on, what I want to engage with them, talk to them about, a little bit of background on who we are, kind of thing. It may be a little tweak. There may be like something that I send more to wineries, or maybe something for brewers, or, within an industry base, might have a little more detailed information about that sector, but generally, then that's the same for each of those. Shall we have, Erica, would you read or share one of your emails that you're working on now? Do you have anything there?
I don't know if I'm quite ready to share like where I'm at.
Is there somebody out there that would be willing to share, like Allison did last week? Okay, that's a big no. Why don't we do this? Why doesn't, I think what might be good, Mark, is if why doesn't everybody send to Mark and I your emails, and then we can kind of edit, offer our thoughts, as well as obviously you're sending them to your group, and then maybe we'll just create a folder and a way to share them so everybody can take a look at it instead of putting everybody on the spot now. Okay. On this front, I just wanted to say on the goal side, we're from the top down. So obviously this work is all about, we're trying to create a more livable, flourishing, regenerative world. And to do that, then we believe that as Farzad said very, very nicely in his CNN piece, that getting effective legislation passed in Congress around carbon pricing is what we see as really a fundamental thing. And we're working to influence members of Congress. And I guess the point I wanted to make with this is, somebody asked me, like, is this sales? Is this not? What is this? And I see it really as we have a solution. We're working on a solution. We have a methodology that we're engaging members of Congress. We're working on getting people to influence those members of Congress towards action. We're talking to faith leaders, we're talking to local government leaders, we're getting editorials and op-eds in newspapers, and we're engaging companies. And we see companies as a really essential voice in getting Congress to move forward. And most people who believe this is an issue, that climate is an issue, don't necessarily know what to do. Even within their companies, they may be shifting towards renewable energy. They may be trying to waste less or do things more sustainable. That's great, but they're like, what else can we do? How do we get involved? How do we move this thing forward? So we and CCL, which is what brought me to CCL as an organization, what keeps me engaged in CCL, is I really believe that what we're doing and the methodology and approach that we're taking is really effective. So we're here offering this, we're offering an on-ramp, if you will, to companies to be engaged. Either they can do just a little thing, sign off on an endorsement of a declaration or the Energy Innovation Act, or they can actually come lobby with us, or they can, there's more and more things they can do that can take more time. But it's a way for them, we're offering an opportunity for them to step up, raise their voice, be more effective in creating action on climate. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there in terms of how I approach it, how I look at it. I like, actually, it's interesting to have conversations with people who don't believe that climate is a big issue or believe that, the solutions are going to be too costly, things like that. But I don't necessarily see it as my role. I'm not necessarily there to convince them, or I'm not there to prove them wrong. But this is an opportunity, and in most cases, who we're working with, who we're able to connect with, who are willing to talk to us and interested in talking to us, are people that are looking for ways that they can help, looking for ways that they can be involved. And we're offering, we're able to educate them and offer them a way to do that. So, Mark, if you have anything to add on that, or if anybody has questions.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. So given that, and given the conversations and some of the questions we've had here for the last few weeks, we've put together this pyramid of asks, or hierarchy, you might say, of asks of what we're looking for. And maybe this will be useful to you. And ultimately, what we want right at the peak of the pyramid here is we want those companies to lobby their elected officials, either come with us to lobby or lobby on their own. And that's what it's all about. But it's hard to get them to do that. So there are some other asks that we could ask for as well. If they don't want to or can't lobby, they can just go online and endorse the Carbon Dividend Act, either by going to that website or signing one of the declarations, if we have a declaration for them. And then once they do that, maybe the next step would be to ask them to lobby. So we're always trying to move up the pyramid here. And if we can't get them to endorse, maybe we can get them to write a letter to the editor of a local newspaper, just talking about how climate change affects them and their industry and how we need a solution. And again, once they do that, maybe we go back to them and try to get them to move up the pyramid. If we can't get that, maybe just to endorse the principles of carbon fee, of a carbon tax and market mechanisms. So using some market features to push us towards renewables and less carbon emissions. That's a easier ask. Again, try to push them up the pyramid once they do that. Can't do that, then we just ask them, can we work with you to educate your suppliers, your customers, your employees? Can you introduce us to other businesses, maybe your trade association? So that might be an easier ask. And then, if nothing else, maybe just to participate in Business Climate Leaders, get on our mailing list so that we can keep, giving them the message. Again, whichever one of these things we can get, that's great. And then if we can get more later on, even better. So just kind of a list of some of the things that we could be shooting for. Always shoot for the top, but be prepared to accept something else.
Yeah, and in that, it's a process in the sense that sometimes you may get something when you have a first meeting engagement with somebody. They may be, yeah, I'm excited, I'll sign that coffee declaration or whatever it may be, or interested. It may take multiple meetings or connections to get to one thing, and then once you have one thing, there may be additions kind of as we go along. So I guess, are there other questions on, I'll go back to that. Questions on that kind of piece?
And this is something you may remember seeing before. Yeah, thank you, Rin. And I'll just quickly repeat it. We talked about this in an earlier meeting, but what are some of the objections you might hear from companies or from people who are not proponents of this? So carbon pricing doesn't guarantee emissions reductions. Right. I mean, when you raise the price of something, people use less of it, but how much less? The carbon tax that we're proposing went through a model, and it says, we're going to get significant reductions. But the model could be off a little bit. So that's an objection. But we do know that the use of fossil fuels is elastic. The higher the price, the less people use. And there are some provisions in our bill that if targets are not being met, the price can fluctuate. Objections are that this doesn't substitute for other effective measures, and they're right. And we don't say that it does. This could be a good first step, carbon fee and dividend, but there are other things that should be done as well in other industries. CAFE standards in automobiles and other things like that. So yes, this does not substitute for other effective measures. It works along well with them, makes them all much more effective. People will say that cap and trade more directly controls emissions. That's true. If you put a cap on how much you can emit, that does control emissions. But then the price of cap and trade is unknown. And one of the things we like about our solution is that businesses will know what the price is now and through the years, where cap and trade is very uncertain. We hear that businesses can move to another country, but as we know, our border carbon adjustment handles that. It will tax goods coming in from another country as if it was made here. Higher taxes discourage growth. Yes, that's true. But again, we're not just taxes, we're a carbon fee and dividend. And that dividend infuses money into the economy and encourages growth, besides making it a much more progressive type of fee. And then, as I pointed out last time, some people would just say, just don't do anything. Just let the temperature rise. And that's cheaper than doing things now. And I think that's, there's fewer and fewer people who believe that anymore. So just a few things you might hear along the way.
Yeah, so just wanted to ask all of you what kind of questions are still in your head, what questions maybe you've heard from people. Olivia had a question for me the other day that I thought was quite good, and I'll have her ask it if she remembers what it was, but I'll open it up now and I'll go back to Olivia if anybody has a question around this. And okay, maybe Olivia, I'll start with you. Do you remember what you asked me, Olivia?
I think I might remember what you're referring to. Was it like the worry of alienating businesses because they don't want to get involved in politics?
Right. Yeah, you asked like talking, I don't know if that was a real example where you talked to somebody and they said, well, I don't like to get into politics. Yeah, and that's something we definitely hear. And I guess I go back to my answer is my own, which is, when I was in business and I didn't want to get into politics, but over the last 5 years, I realized if I don't get into politics, are things really going to change? And this is such an issue, and the scientists are telling us that we need to deal with this issue at such a speed and scale that we really need policy to address it. And there was a study that we did with Silicon Valley Leadership Group out here. We had a consultant look at the carbon fee and dividend policy, and the results were that all that a company can do, these were big, this was funded by a number of big tech companies, but in terms of like going to renewable energy or having their employees fly less or things like that, that actually having a federal policy in place would be 20 times more effective than anything that they could individually do. So I understand the desire not to get into politics. And I guess in that case, I would ask them, what's your concern? Is your concern about alienating your customers? and or is your concern that you just don't feel like it's going to get anywhere, or what is it? In the case that it's not going to get anywhere, well, it's not going to move anything unless, people are willing to step up and speak up. And, you can say it from your side, hey, this is something that's really important to me, and I'm a customer of yours, it may be, and, the more young people are out there are really concerned about this, and, we really need the support of businesses in order to move this. And if it's the first part in terms of concern about alienating customers, then you can either do it publicly, like publicly endorse, you can publicly, you can go meet with your with your legislator and put it on Facebook and all that, or you can do it privately. You can not tell your employees, not tell your customers, but just go and have a meeting or send an email to your legislator, or or other things that you can do privately. So
Yeah, the other thing I would say is that, as a business person, you can say to that business person that obviously government policies affect every part of your business, how you employ people, how you serve people, whatever it is. And there will be a climate policy that will affect your business. Question is, do you want to have a say in what that policy is, or do you just want to let it happen to you? So, yeah, I mean, politics can be messy, but it affects what you do, affects your business.
yeah, what's the saying? I don't know if this is a DC saying, either have a seat at the table, or you're the meat. You either have a seat at the table eating, or you're the meal. Yeah, that's a good point. The other one that comes up the other answer I have to that, and it relates to other things as well, is, there is going to be a policy, as Mark mentioned, and for businesses that are impacted by climate already, if you're a ski resort, you're a winery, you're a coffee roaster, anything agriculture, lots of different sectors that are already impacted by climate. So there's already increasing costs, through your supply chain, that having a federal policy spreads those costs out across all businesses. So I heard the head of the ski resort association basically tells her big ski resorts, like, hey, you guys are already having issues with snowfall. You're already paying higher insurance costs because of wildfires and issues like that. So you're already paying the cost. If you support a federal climate policy, such as a federal carbon pricing policy, that spreads the cost. So it gets everybody incentivized to work on dealing with this issue that is critical to you and your business. Other questions, other things that you think companies are concerned about, or you're concerned about, or how does this fit in, or questions you have about it?
I have a quick question. I was wondering what you would say in response to someone who would be like, cost to switch to all electric will go down in the future. Why should we do it now and pay these higher costs?
Your question is that renewables, for instance, the price of renewables?
Yeah, like say that they recognize the necessity to switch, but like economically speaking, like vertical and supply chains don't exist or aren't in place yet, where costs are reduced enough for them to make the switch now, and it'll be more cost effective later. Basically, why take action now rather than in a few years?
Yeah, well, I guess I would say a couple of things. One is, in terms of that delay, if you believe the scientists, they basically say, we have a certain carbon budget we have to meet, by 2030 and by 2050. So that's one side of the argument, is like, we need to act. And it's proving the economics and there's research to show that having a price on carbon, like the Energy Innovation Act, will get us to what is it, 40% reduction by 2030, and 100% or close to by I think it's 95% by 2050. So that a carbon price, a carbon fee and dividend accelerates that transition. So if you believe that electrifying is going to be lower cost for you, then this is just accelerating that electrification. The other thing and this applies to all businesses, is that if you start, like, if there's piecemeal regulations in different industries, then different industries will have cost affected in different ways. Whereas if you have a carbon price, it's really affecting everybody. So if you're a brewer, your costs are going up the same as the other brewer down the street, same as the other brewer across the country, except to the point of the lower your carbon footprint, the less fossil fuels you're using, then you're paying lower fees, right? So you're incentivized to do lower. So everybody down your supply chain, if there's a carbon price, will be affected, not quite equally, but will be affected, and everybody in those industries will be affected similarly. So it's making something, that is everybody. So if I'm Walmart, my costs go up a little bit. Well, Target's costs are going to go up pretty much the same kind of thing. So I'm not losing competitive advantage.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Griffin, but in the case of renewable electricity technologies, I mean, the price has come down so much, it will come down some more, but price of many things keep coming down, but people buy them, right? Because at some point, it makes sense to buy them, and the price of renewables at this point have become cheaper than most other electric forms. That's why all the new capacity is that. So yeah, I mean, every company is going to make that kind of decision for themselves, but prices have come down significantly.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll have some more time to answer questions. So if something comes up, we will have you share that. So just wanted to talk through the process. It's awesome that some of you guys are reaching out to companies now and getting meetings set up, and just want to make sure that we're checking the boxes as we go along as well. So Mark and I want to just go through and make sure, kind of go through the list of companies that you're talking to, and just making sure that that's all coordinated. So want to make sure that you, either if it's a small local company, that you can check in with the chapters there and at least try to connect with them just to see if anybody is talking to those companies or has. And if it's a bigger company, please make sure you connect with Mark or I first before. I know some people had interest in kind of connecting with the Red Cross or Black Rock or Squaw Valley. Those are all great, and just want to make sure that we're coordinated with the different entities within BCL and CCL that may already have existing relationships or have contacts. And if you have a contact there already, then you can be part of that discussion with them, which is great. So once you do that, and we've kind of just done a quick look in terms of we're good with all the companies, then go ahead and start getting your emails out, and then want to make sure that you check in with your group weekly and check in with Mark or I if you have any questions along the way.
So if you haven't done so, please make a note that in the next couple of days to share your list with your local chapter or your state coordinator. And if you're having trouble figuring out who that is, Randy or I can help you do that. But you might be surprised that you might get some advice or some help when you let them know what you're doing.
Yeah, and if you're having trouble getting connected with them, let us know. So the plan ahead in the week and weeks coming. So would like to ask you all, those of you that can make it, this is a new meeting, but at Monday at this time, 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern, going to have a friend who's a volunteer and an expert on CRM, customer relationship management software, going to join us. We're going to use, instead of, I just initially set up the, you putting your targets here on this Google sheet that I did, but we're going to be launching and introducing and testing a prototype of a CRM system using Airtable. If you're familiar with that at all, it's another spreadsheet service, but it's a way that will allow us to better hopefully allow you to better manage your engagement with companies, and allow us to better manage and just keep abreast of the work that you're doing. So we're going to have a training session, get us going on that on Monday, and I'll record that. So if you can't make it, that's fine. We'll get you going on that. So, and then ask that you invite Mark and I to your group meeting. So hopefully, if you haven't had a group meeting with your group already, then do so. That I'm just going to put this page back in here. We've combined a couple groups. We combined, I think, group 3 with group 2, since we've had a little bit of shifting around a bit. And so these are the groups. So there's 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to pop that in chat so you know your group, and then you have your contact information as well as LinkedIn information. So just a reminder, go ahead and connect with everybody on LinkedIn. It's just nice to have now and for the future. And I'll ask you how the summer advocacy is going in a second, but just remember to keep kind of connecting with the summer advocacy training. I think that will be helpful just in getting more abreast on the work, on who we are, the organization, as well as the work that we're doing. And then we'll be back here in 2 weeks for another follow-up call. So with that, I'm actually going to do this. I want to show something, which is on BCL resources. If you go to the declarations page here, you'll see a list of all the declarations. So the question is, if you are talking to a brewer, great, there's information on brewers. If you're talking to a bike shop, there's information here. If you're talking to a farm, there's information. For distilleries, there's kind of a detailed, more background information. There's also the declaration, which you can mention in the email that you send out. So I'll just go into distilleries, for instance. So you can mention, like, Fatu is talking to some distilleries in Kentucky, and you can mention this to them, that we have this distillers climate declaration. Would love to talk to you about that, trying to get the distilling industry engaged on climate. But in the case where you're talking to a restaurant, you're talking to a cement company, you're talking to a ski resort where we don't have those declarations, then really the ask would be more to endorse the Energy Innovation Act. So that's kind of, if you don't have an industry that we have a specific program for, then it's really about the broader support for the broader bill, either the Energy Innovation Act, and if they're not quite there yet, then overall just support for carbon pricing. So with that, I will kind of open it back up for questions to everybody. So I'm happy to keep talking. I have a couple more things, but I want to make sure that you're getting questions that you have answered. So I will say one thing, and if you do have a question that you want to pop in there, great. The other thing, like Neha and Elena, and I'm going to be part of the meeting with this gentleman who's running for state to be a state representative on Friday, and I was looking at his campaign profile, and it says he's a big supporter of the Green New Deal, and that's something that we run up against, on the progressive side, is people will say, I'm supportive of the Green New Deal, but I'm not sure about, if I want to support carbon pricing. And my answer to that is both a personal one as well as CCL, which is Green New Deal is great. It's really awesome framework. It definitely goes way beyond climate. It deals with minimum wage. It deals with healthcare for all, a lot of issues and important issues that I happen to align with personally. But I think it's a couple pages long. It's a vision statement. It's creating a framework for action, but it doesn't actually specify any of how we actually get there. It asks, I think it's for carbon neutrality by 2030, I think, if I recall correctly, but it doesn't actually have any of the mechanisms in there. So our view, and actually what we've heard from the Green New Deal, I think it's from the organization, that carbon pricing would be perhaps one of many ways in which that would be a policy that would help get to where we need to get to. So it's not incongruent. with it. It's one piece of what could be part of an overall Green New Deal package. I think there's, in Europe, there's a movement towards the new green, I think it's called the New Green Deal, which is a broader framework within the EU. And carbon pricing is part of that. So it's not a one or the other. To me, it's very much an and. Mark, anything to add or any questions?
No, I would just say
anybody has?
now is when the work begins. This is when we, start working our lists, finding the right names, finding the right email addresses, and start to contact. And it'll be an interesting process. You'll, have some steps back and a few steps forward, but I think you're going to find it very rewarding.
Yeah, and again, we'll learn as we go. So we're doing this together, and we're here to support you and whatever questions and whatever help you need. Like Neha had the meeting set up. She's emailed Mark and I like, okay, I have this meeting. What do I do now? She didn't say that. She could have. I'm sure they could have actually handled it nicely, but said, so one of us is happy to join on meetings like that, or it'll be somebody else in BCL, CCL that can help. So we will be part of the process with you. So, all right. Unless anybody has a question, we'll end it here, and you know how to reach us. So do send your draft emails out to us, and we'll compile that and get it out to you, and as well as any questions, we'll answer them. All right. Thanks. Excited to have you all. Appreciate everything, and have a great weekend.
Have a good week. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.